So boom, there I was watching this YouTube channel, this guy that I've recently come to like. I mainly liked him because he made a video on The Thing, the horror movie from the 80s about the alien that was basically stealing people's identities or whatever and assimilating their bodies and then, trying to get out of Antarctica. Great movie, totally watch it, but I'm really hoping that you're not one of those people that hasn't seen that movie, right? Right? Anyways, he was doing a video about plot twists. It was about the Twilight Zone. Now, I have heard about the Twilight Zone for years. In fact, I watched Futurama and they made plenty of parodies of the Twilight Zone. So I was like, the particular video that he was talking about of the particular episode wasn't really all that to me. But then I was like, maybe it's time for me to give it a try, because if this guy liked it and he tends to like a lot of the horror movies that I like, then I'll probably like the Twilight Zone too. So I did. And I skipped all the way to season 3. In season 3, why did I do that? Because, I don't know. Whenever I watch new shows and they've got a bunch of seasons, I just jump to like a later season because I assume that's when they start getting good. That there's no way that they made good stuff initially in the first seasons, but I'll get around to watching all the season 1 and season 2 stuff. But I watched season 3. The first one I watched was about like a possible nuclear attack and then all the neighbors. That was actually good. It was kind of rage-inducing, no plot twist for real. Then the next episode that I watched, though, was good. It was called The Passerby. And I just want to give the Twilight Zone its flowers because it kind of invoked something in me in which I thought I couldn't have been gotten. It got me, and basically I thought I was ungettable for quite the longest because I'm one of those people that watch horror movies and I feel like I can get the movie before it even does the plot twist or whatever. I've been getting real bored of stuff. But this one, you got me, Twilight Zone. You got me, because that twist at the end, the reveal at the end, was really good. So no for the yipper yapping. I'm basically going to talk to you about all this, everything that happens, and all the parts that really got me, all the really good and juicy parts, dude. This episode starts off with, this is a period piece. This is about the Civil War. There's this road, and a bunch of these Civil War soldiers are just walking down it. They all look tattered, battered, bruised, hurt, all that. The main guy we're following is this guy who has a crutch. He has one crutch. I'm assuming something's happened to one of his legs, then he needs a crutch. He's also got a guitar. He's walking by. He walks by, passes a house, one of these big, nice Victorian houses. Victorian houses? Antebellum probably, right? Big, nice houses from the South. And there's a woman there in a rocking chair, which I thought was weird, but okay. She's sitting in a rocking chair. He comes up. He's thirsty. He asks for water. He asks her if he can use some of her water. She's like, sure, no problem. So he drinks the water. Then he asks if he can sit down. And she's like, okay. So he sits down. Then he starts plucking at his guitar. He asks permission. She's like, okay. Then he starts singing with his guitar. And the lady enjoys it. She's just rocking there. Then she starts talking about how her husband used to play the guitar. Then he says, cool. What happened to him? Then she tells him that, her husband died in the war. And then she tells him specifically where and when he died. So that's an important piece to remember. Her husband is dead. And she is in mourning. And she's sad. In fact, she's so sad that she asks him to play really loud so that the sound of the guitar can drown out all the noise of the people walking by. Remember the people that are walking on that trail? You know what I'm saying? Because when I was watching it, I just thought, these are soldiers who are coming home from the war. They are going someplace. Or I think I even thought that this was during the war, that they're just on to some location next, and he just happens to be one taking a break at this house. In fact, I actually thought it was weird. I'm like, yo, are you allowed to be taking breaks? Are you allowed to be stopping by people's houses when there's a war going on, to be taking this hiatus? But I would get my question answered very shortly. This next scene is a notable one that I want to talk about, because she jumps up from what she was doing because she sees a guy named Charlie who she recognizes. He's also walking this trail, right? Walking this path. So his name is Charlie Constable, who, after hearing her talk, is like the husband of a friend of hers. So she's happy to see him because she goes, they said that you had been killed or you had been shot in the head or something, right? So she goes, it's great to see you. Hey, when you get to your wife or whatever, let her know to stop by, but you know, she's probably going to want you for a while because she hasn't seen you in a while, right? The guy is just basically fixated on his goal, his path. He's trying to get down the road, right? By the way, down the road is very, it's an important phrase. So he's just got to get down the road. She tries to like talk to him, but he's very fixated on what he has to do. And it's at this point that he decides to take off his stuff. He's like, oh, this stuff is holding me back. Takes off his hat, takes off the other thing that he's got over his shoulder, takes off his like canteen or whatever, and then he just keeps on going. He's a man on a mission. He has to get to the other side, so he keeps on going. He stares at her for a little bit because she's embracing him, but it seemed weird at first, right? And then at the end, she picks up his hat and she's playing with it, and she goes, oh, there's blood on this hat that goes on his head. There's blood on it. Weird. Now, I like to say that I'm very perceptive on things, right? But I actually didn't pick up on this, or I think I did, but I still wasn't getting the whole message or whatever to this. I just thought, well, maybe he is dead, because you did say he got shot in the head, and now you're picking up his hat, and there's blood on it, but I didn't even see a wound, so I kind of just let it brush. At this point, I'm half asleep. I'm laying in my bed. I'm trying to go to sleep, and I'm not really paying attention to all this. So boom, they sit down a little bit. They keep talking. They try to get to know each other. They're playing the guitar. It's nighttime now, right? She tells him about how her husband used to sit here and sing that song that black is the color of my something's hair, lover's hair or whatever, right? At this point, we really get to know the woman, right? She talks about like her husband's death or whatever, and she says, what do you think that the guy who killed my husband is doing? Do you think he went off and he's telling stories about how he killed a rebel soldier or whatever? Basically, the guy says he doesn't really want to talk about that stuff, because she then brings up the fact that if she sees a Yankee, which is like the people who were fighting for the North, because she's from the South and her husband fought for the South, she says that if she sees one, she swears and promises that she will shoot him for her husband, which is a poignant note to remember in the future, right? So the guy isn't really into all that. He says he's sick and tired of all the death or whatever. He brings up Abraham Lincoln, who he says got shot as well. Now, this is the next scene that is also very pertinent to talk about, because this scene was oh so powerful to me, okay? This hit different. Let me tell you something, right? This scene right here hits different, and I love this scene for it because of everything, including the dialogue, the characters, the acting, and also the music, the background music. It really sets the tone of this scene right here to give me chills. Okay, so there's a guy coming up, going through the path. He's on horseback. So the guy, the man on a horse, right? He's all shaded in. He's dark, right? So they probably don't want you to see who he is. It's real mysterious. So he asks for some water.
I wonder if you could tell me if there's any water around here.
Right. I think the guy's voice is also really good. I think the way he talks is also really good. He asks for water. The guy with the guitar, I don't know why I forgot his name. I should really get his name, but whatever. At this point, he says, sure, we can get you some water. I'm sure it's fine with the lady. The guy then goes, hey, you look familiar. I've seen you someplace.
It seems to me that I know you. We met somewhere.
That's possible.
I don't know what it is, but I'm trying to remember.
Go on. What is it that you remember?
I was laying on the side of the road. You, Lieutenant, you came by with a patrol of Yankees, and you stopped there. You took care of me. You stopped the bleeding.
Yes, I remember that.
Sure, of course you do.
And I just love the responses that the guy on horseback says, right? He says, really? That's possible. It's possible that we've met someplace. And he goes, the guy on horseback goes, yeah, try to remember where. And at this point, I'm not really understanding fully what's going on. You know what I'm saying? The guy with the guitar goes, no, you saved my life. I remember I was there and there was like a shell explosion. It caught one of my legs. And I remember you being a Yankee soldier. He's a soldier from the North. You stopped by and you helped my leg. You stopped the bleeding and you saved my life. So he's very thankful for the man on the horse, right? And so he's so happy to see this man, so thankful because he remembers that this man essentially helped save his life. He turns around because the lady had disappeared for a second, and he tries to go get the lady to introduce him, and she's got a shotgun out. Remember, she had promised that if she saw a Yankee soldier, a soldier from the North, that she would shoot him. So lady's got a shotgun out. She made that promise. She's very convicted in that, right?
It's the last gift you'll ever get. The last one on this earth.
This your pleasure, ma'am?
And duty?
Then you'd best get on with it.
So the guy goes, "This your pleasure, ma'am?" That kind of vocabulary word usage is just freaking awesome. It's powerful, right? He goes, "This your pleasure, ma'am." But he says it much cooler than I just said it. She goes, "And duty too." These people know how to play with words, bruh. So then he says, he says, "You best get on with it." Hey, anyways, that's just so tough, bruh. His whole demeanor, the way he talks, everything is cool. So the guy with the guitar tries to fight and get the shotgun away from the woman, only for her to get back up and shoot the guy, and nothing happens. She goes,
"I couldn't have missed you."
Because she's in shock. It's point blank damn near. She couldn't have missed him. Guy just keeps on his cool self, facing the same way. He goes,
"It doesn't make any difference whether you did or whether you didn't."
I'm telling you, man, this scene hits hard. Try to imagine all this with the right music in the background, just getting this tense feeling in the scene. It's just wonderful. So it's at this point the guy with the guitar gets up and he goes, "Wait a minute," because now more memories come rushing in. He goes, I remember they got you that day." He says, "I remember there was an explosion. There's hot metal just everywhere." And he goes, "I could have sworn I remember that getting all over your eyes and you screaming, 'I'm blind, I'm blind.'" He says he could have sworn that they got him that day. And then the guy just keeps on fixated. He goes,
"That doesn't make any difference now either. That water from the well."
Basically, bro, he says the same thing and it just hits even harder, dude. And then he goes, "That water, can I get some of that water now?" So they give him that water and they're all just confused until the guy with the guitar holds up the lamp to see his face at last. And we can see that there's still the wounds, the remnants of the shrapnel that got into his eyes. He is blind. And at this point, I'm thinking, so he's dead too? Because he was talking about him being dead. I still didn't really get it, to be honest. Or I don't know if I did, but at this point, I was all in on this episode, and I'm thinking, this episode is tough. So the guy walks away, and every one of them is still confused. Now, I don't know how time works in this, wherever they are, but the next day, we'll say, happens, and, the guy with the guitar, he just wakes up, and he's got all his things packed up, and he talks to the lady. He tells her, "I'm fixing to go now." He says that seeing Charlie and then the guy on the horseback, the blind man, it stirred something in him, it made him think that maybe he should also follow their path and see what's at the end of that road, right? At the end of that path. And so he tells her he has to go, but she doesn't want him to go because then she'll be alone and she doesn't want to be alone. So he tries to reassure her and she tries to convince him to stay when, boom, they hear the song that the guy with the guitar has been playing this whole time. "Black is the color of my..." I really should learn the song's name by now. And then she turns around because she recognizes that voice, and it's her husband who shows up at last. Now, it's at this point that I am harking back to the beginning when she said her husband was dead, so I'm confused, right? Why is he here? But he seems a little more knowledgeable and he knows what's going on, and he even talks to, I think he's a sergeant, the guy with the guitar. He goes, "Right?" And the guy with the guitar says, "I think I do." And then they show him looking at the end of that road and he's off. And that's when she's embracing her husband. And he gives her an analogy about a song that comes to an end and then there's no more notes and it's finished. And she goes, "Are we dead?" She literally asked him that question. "Are we dead?" And he goes, "Yes." And she goes, and he goes, "We gotta go." But then she goes, "I can't leave this place." You know what I'm saying? But then he says, "I'll be waiting for you," or whatever, right? So he tries to get her there, but he's still magnetized. He still has to go. He tells her, but he's going like this. He says, "I'll wait for her," basically beckoning her to come to him. And it's at this point that I finally get it. Yeah, they're all dead. Every single one of them. The man with the guitar, the woman. He tells her how she even died. He says, we died. He says he died at war with a gunshot and you died of a fever or whatever. I just assumed that she cried her eyes out and it got real sad. And that's when we see, like, I couldn't believe it actually, by the way. They brought Abraham Lincoln into this. So they got a guy to play as Abraham Lincoln, and he comes in at the end to try to get this lady to fully understand, right? And he also tries to convince her of what's going on. And then he says some powerful words, and basically he says that, in a way, he's the final casualty of the war. Which is some real shit. You know what I'm saying? Because Abraham Lincoln wanted to end the war, and then he died. And then shortly after the war ended. But yeah, bro, that's tough, bro. I didn't get the fact that they had all died, and I didn't understand the metaphor, the allegory of the road. From the beginning of the episode, every single person that had been walking down that road is a dead person, a person who died during the war. This is a path for the dead people who died during the war. They go on to the other side, the end of the road, being like symbolic of the other side. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to say heaven or hell or whatever. I don't know what's on the other side, but they're trying to get to the other side. So then I remember back to Charlie, the guy that got shot. He did die. She told us, she had been telling us the truth in all this. Her husband did get shot and he died. She said it literally in the first few minutes of the episode. The Charlie guy, when she saw him, I thought you were dead. He did die. He got shot in the head, and that's why when she had the cap, the blood, it was like blood from the gunshot wound to his head. And he was just trying to get to the other side because he was trying to pass on. And so then I got to thinking, wait a minute, does that mean that she's basically haunting this house, just sitting there in a rocking chair because she's not ready to move on to the other side? Is that what a poltergeist is? Is that what a ghost is? She's just stuck there haunting this house. But anyways, that was some real stuff. That was a good episode. It really got me because towards the end I was like, whoa, no way. And I'm really happy that I watched this episode. I'm definitely going to be watching out some other episodes of The Twilight Zone. It's been your boy, Dirk Diggler. I'm out.